What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the PT Coffee Cast, brought to you by The Movement. My name is Dalton, and alongside me today is my beautifully bearded friend, William. William, how are we doing today?
Doing good. Just chugging this coffee. You ready? Can you believe I just did that?
Dude, this guy's impressive.
There we go.
That's what you get at the PT Coffee Cast. High level of coffee consumption.
Exactly.
But we're back with another episode, guys. We're super pumped to be here. If you aren't subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe on your podcast platform. If you aren't subscribed on our YouTube channel, head over there, subscribe so you can see the full episode. You can watch Will chug his coffee. You can see his beautiful haircut. You can see my nice socks. We're trying to get our YouTube subscribers up to 500 this year in 2024. So head over there, check it out. We have some other cool stuff there that you guys will probably like as well. And if you want to learn more about what we got going on with our mentorship, make sure you head over there, themovementmentorship.com, and you can learn everything about the mentorship there. But let's dive into today's episode. Want to share a little bit of a clinical scenario that I had, kind of highlighting the importance of meeting your client where they're at, I think, and then showing them the path to what is going to allow them to be successful, but also the importance of diving into conversations around barriers and what's going to best lead the client to success, so that they can get to where they want to go and make sure that it's a good fit for you and the skill set that you have as a clinician, which I think is a very important thing that we should do, and often doing it as soon as possible, which in this scenario was like the initial assessment, is the best way to go about it.
I think like the main misconception we're addressing with this is the idea that I think a lot of people confuse meeting people where they're at with doing whatever they want.
Yes.
It's not the case. We're going to kind of highlight that.
Yeah, you can meet someone where they're at and understand where they're coming from and what they're experiencing, but getting to where they want to go and the process of getting there might not be the way that they have in their mind. And it's not you forcing them that way, it's you sharing your perspectives on how you think that client could get there the best way that they can based off what they're saying and bringing that into the picture. It's a very emerged team experience.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're, coming over and just going, hey, come on with me.
Right? Dude, I would 100% go with you if you did that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, obviously goofing around, but maybe...
Yeah. We'll dive into
the
scenario. Yeah. So I had a client come in who was looking to get back on track with making exercise part of their daily routine, as well as work on some functional and mobility kind of improvements that could help them with things like golf, with playing with their kids, that kind of stuff. And immediately it was very clear that this person was busy. I think they mentioned it 1,000 times on the phone before they came in. They mentioned to me 1,000 times before we even really got into it. And rightfully so. This individual, was married with 3 kids under 5. He's running his own business that he just had a merger on, which has been extremely, intense for him. So in terms of being busy, that makes sense to me. But one thing that was really important for him, and he had communicated that to me, is that, exercise, training, and then some of these mobility improvements were really important to him because he's always been someone who's been active with CrossFit, with golf, with training, that kind of stuff, and he has not been able to do that. And so he was coming to me with that challenge, and I was like, okay, well, when I hear this, we need to really, before we dive into all the assessment tools and the things that I can do clinically to help him accomplish his mobility goals, his functional goals, his training goals, we need to make sure that this is a good fit. This is a good time for him. That the way that we're set up as a clinic is going to be the best to optimize his opportunity to get to his goals. And so we spent a lot of time having those conversations, and I very much went through all the options in which we could work with him in order to lead him to success. And we spent a good 30 to 40 minutes of that initial assessment highlighting and talking about those things, which I'll touch on a little bit more. But I don't know if you have anything to add on top of just like what I already shared. But that's kind of the base scenario that happened.
Well, I think the biggest thing that you touched on, that I want to kind of like highlight is how many times this person brought up being busy.
Yeah.
And so I think you want to not brush past that. Like, that's clearly, if someone's talking about it on the phone, writing about it in their intake form, then comes in and it's like the first thing that they bring up, you should probably spend a lot of time talking about that thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's like what you did well that led to the stuff that you're going to talk about.
Yeah, I think the important thing with that is acknowledging it and then talking about how it's a barrier for this guy, for this situation, right? So like I acknowledged it and I feel this is where you can use your own personal experience, your perspectives, who you are to like relate to someone. I could very much relate to this guy in the sense that I'm a business owner. I'm busy-ish. I don't have kids, and I feel like I'm busy. So I immediately was like, yeah, man, like I could see how you feel like you're, really busy. You're running a business, you're doing this, you have kids. It's like, I feel like I don't have time sometimes to train, and I don't even have kids, So like that was kind of acknowledging like, hey, I hear you, I get it. And then the next thing was like, okay, so what do you think is the biggest barrier from you accomplishing your goals?
I want to, before you keep going, that was meeting them where they're at.
Totally.
Right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I kind of asked him like what he thought the biggest barrier was. And what I really appreciated from him was he's very aware of all of this, which sometimes like people aren't. But he was very aware of like, yeah, it's because I'm not prioritizing it. I've had a lot going on. I've let it slide. And the reason I'm here is to figure out if this is the best way to get me back on track and getting me toward my goals. And so then we started breaking down that barrier, and I started asking him things like, before I started asking things, I was like, hey, here's a few ways that we can work together, right? We can do this where we work one-on-one. We work one-on-one with our clients for an hour. We do plan options. I laid that all out, more of our like one-on-one physiotherapy option, right? Then I also mentioned to him that we work in like a continuity basis where, sometimes what we'll do is we'll do an initial assessment. We'll highlight the things that we can work on, the mobility improvements, the functional improvements, and then we'll provide you with a home exercise plan that you go and do on your own. And then we check in more on a monthly basis so that we can continue to progress and keep you updated. And then the third thing I talked to him about was our group strength class, which is like separate of physio, but we run a group strength class here that is very much for someone like this person. And I shared that option with him. And we went through each of those options and talked about which one would be the best for him. And what we came to immediately was, as much as the group class was probably the best thing for him because he wanted a place where he could just, he could come in, do his workout, be around other people, be told what to do and get out and focus on those things. We realized that it wasn't going to be the most successful because the time restriction was hard on his circumstances at home to where he believes that he would probably miss more classes than not. So even though that was the best option overall, we nixed that, right? And then we talked about, the continuity option, which also was a good option for him. However, we identified as we were chatting more that working out at home just wasn't going to fly for him. I asked him, like, what's your home setup like? What's the environment like? And he's like, yeah, I have some stuff, but I'm not going to be motivated to go into the garage in the middle of February to do a session. So I know I'm just going to not do it. And I was like, cool, done. That's out. And then the next thing we came to was where we landed was we would work one-on-one together on a weekly basis for a couple of reasons. One, it would allow for us to progress things and make sure that he's making progress and heading in the right direction from a mobility and functional standpoint. Two, it would provide him accountability on a weekly basis where he would have to come here. There was more freedom to change when he would come in because my time on my schedule is more available than like a 6 a.m. time slot or a 7 p.m. time slot. And that made sense for him to commit to, and we could book those sessions out so that he had that on the calendar, and then it was there for him to work on. And then outside of that, he's like, I want to start going to a gym one time outside of working with you, based off the exercises that you give me. I'll go to the gym and do that on my own. And so now we're getting committed to, for now, 2 sessions a week, one with me, one on his own at a gym, which he had acknowledged that if he was just trying to go to a gym on his own, he wouldn't do it because he'd have no plan or accountability. And so we worked through all of those things to make sure that it made sense. And that was where we kind of started.
And I think that's cool because obviously, there's maybe more quote unquote ideal scenarios, but I think that's kind of always the case, right? And what you're doing is providing the opportunity to habit stack and like build on habits. And I think that's really important. So, you're sort of, that's where what we mean by like meeting people where they're at. You figure out what can be done right now to build habits and move gradually towards the ideal. Mm. And so I think something like that, what that does is it gives them the opportunity to prioritize and build on that to where there's less resistance. You're kind of stacking proof, so to speak, right? Of like providing yourself evidence that I can make this time work every week. I've been doing that for 3 months. So if I just take this next step, it's a little bit less of a giant leap and more likely to be successful, versus if you were to go there and try to do that now and then fail and probably get off fall
off the wagon. Yeah, and that's kind of where we went, was like, he's like, well, after we do that, what's the next step? And I said, well, that can kind of show itself based off what makes the most sense for you. It's like, we can continue on this train the same way. If that's working for you and you're getting to your goals and you're finding that to be valuable and we're having success, we can do that. We can transition you to going to another gym that we, refer people to here that would get you more in that group class environment, and that now that it's more of a routine, you could prioritize that. We have some options that we can continue to work with. Maybe you go on independently and do your thing. We can kind of see where that goes. But right now, we need to make sure that we're accomplishing this. And I said, hey, what do you think about that? Do you think that this is going to be something that would, help you or what you're looking for? And if it's not, all good. We'll make sure we try to get you in front of the right people. If it's not me, someone else. And then I just kind of left it in his hands to make that kind of decision. And he kind of really came to the conclusion that there wasn't too many other options that he had, and that he didn't really know if this was going to 100% work for him, but he had to try it to see if this was going to be successful. So we ended up doing that option. And then after we had that conversation, I took him through the rest of the assessment, and we identified some areas of opportunity and some things that he could work on from a mobility standpoint, from a strength standpoint, to, make him be able to functionally feel good as a desk worker, as well as playing golf. And then we kind of set the plan of all right, next steps are, we're going to follow up in a week. We're going to do our first session. Your job is to go and find a gym that you're going to sign up for so that you can accomplish going twice a week, one with me, once on your own, and we're going to get into it.
Yeah, that's great. I think the cool to sort of get some key points. I think it's meeting people where they are isn't just doing what they want, and then what you want to do is identify those things that maybe might be barriers to achieving their ultimate goal, and provide them with a plan that's going to gradually build them there. Providing options too was another thing that you did, I think, really well. And just recognizing that is the important thing in the assessment, not the objective tests, not the asking about the problems necessarily. It's that. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot, and sometimes you have to just recognize that this is the real barrier and we need to explore that more. And that's part of, I think, what we do and what we can do for people.
Totally, and it's our job to pull those out of people. In this case, this guy was like very forthcoming with those things, which makes it easy for me. Like the harder part is when people might not know those barriers, or they might not be as aware of what's going on, and that's totally normal. I've had that happen in my life. I know you've experienced that. So as clinicians, like to explore that with clients is super important, and the challenging things become when you have to try to like pull that out. And sometimes that's not going to happen in the first session. It's going to take some time to pull on that thread, but that is at the core of like what we need to do to really ultimately give the client the best potential chance for success. Because the interesting part of all this is like the success is not guaranteed. Like we laid it all out, and we have a plan, and we tried our best to put the most successful plan in place for him, but you still have to execute on that, and that's what we'll see what happens, right? But I feel good about that. Was probably the best way we could go about this situation to hopefully lead to the success. And now we got to navigate the journey of rehab and habit change and building off that plan, which is a whole nother game.
It starts with, I'm hearing you say you're busy. Can we talk about that more?
Yeah.
Yes, and then explore it.
Yeah, totally. Cool. Well, I think that's good. I'm busy, so I got to get out of here.
Same.
But guys, thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the podcast on your podcast platform. Share it with another person. Leave a review. If you guys want to see our beautiful faces on YouTube, head over to our YouTube channel, The Movement PTs. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Our goal is to get that baby to 500 subscribers by the end of 2024. And then if you guys want to learn more about the mentorship, head over to themovementmentorship.com. Got all things mentorship there. But that's all we got for today, guys. As always, stay caffeinated. Peace.